13 years passed, and every Thursday at dawn, massive trucks rolled into Margaret Hale's property without fail, their arrival as predictable as sunrise. The drivers would alight briefly, position their vehicles beside the fence, tilt the dump beds, and unload sacks of rough-cut white oak before vanishing back toward the lumber yard. Though many assumed Margaret despised these deliveries, she secretly welcomed them, for each shipment offered a fresh chance. This peculiar arrangement had begun in 1992 when Margaret inherited 85 acres from her grandfather, Samuel, land that bordered the county lumber yard. For decades, the mill had grappled with a persistent issue: short offcuts, warped slats, irregular live-edge pieces, and wide slabs too valuable to burn yet too uneven for standard lumber sales. Disposal costs mounted, and burning them squandered precious hardwood. One drenching afternoon, the yard's manager knocked on Margaret's door, shedding his cap in the humid air. "Afternoon," he said simply. Margaret gestured him inside. Instead, he pointed toward the fence. "We've got a question." After a moment of silence, he asked, "What kind?" He scratched his neck. "Mind if we dump oak behind your north pasture?" Margaret frowned. "Why, we're paying to haul it away." A long pause followed. "So," he shrugged, "if you've got room." Margaret surveyed the neglected back corner, rocky, poorly drained, rarely visited. "How much?" The manager chuckled. "More than you'd believe." Margaret smiled. "Fine." Neither grasped then how this casual agreement would reshape the next 2 decades. The first truck arrived the following Thursday, then another the week after, and another still. The piles swelled gradually. Most pieces appeared worthless, crooked, uneven, oddly proportioned, some still bearing bark. Neighbors dismissed them as trash, others muttered firewood. Samuel, however, saw something else. One evening when Margaret was 16, she trailed him to the expanding mounds. He lifted a thick white oak slab, ran his hand along its grain, and beamed. "Pretty," Margaret laughed. "This," Samuel nodded. "Most beautiful board here." She squinted. It looked rough, crude, unfinished. What did he see? Samuel tilted the slab toward the light. Golden rays revealed intricate swirling patterns beneath the rough bark. "Furniture." Margaret scowled. "Impossible." Samuel chuckled. "The tree already did the hard part." His words lingered long after his passing. Margaret inherited more than land: Samuel's woodworking shed, aged hand planes, chisels, books, and dozens of notebooks filled with designs and techniques. Repeatedly, one sentence echoed: "Straight boards build houses. Interesting boards build heirlooms." As poetic, it soon became her blueprint. The Thursday trucks persisted, and the oak piles swelled into mountains. Folks teased her relentlessly. One diner morning, Dale Harper peered toward her property. "There she is," he declared. Rick chuckled. "The lumber lady," Dale nodded. "Junk collector." Laughter bubbled around them, a comfortable, familiar jest. Another farmer asked, "How much firewood you got now?" Margaret smiled. "Too much." "You planning to heat the whole county?" "No." "What then?" She gazed toward distant hills. "Tables." The word ricocheted through the room. "Tables from scrap." "Those crooked boards," Margaret nodded. No one believed her. She'd never crafted furniture, never operated a shop, never advertised. Still, she reopened Samuel's journals that winter, practicing dovetails, mortise and tenon joints, and glue-ups nightly. Early attempts fared poorly. The first table wobbled, the second merely steadied, the third nearly level. By the 15th, everything shifted. The grain, the character, the live edges critics deemed flaws transformed into beauty. Margaret ceased seeing waste. She began envisioning stories. One evening her brother Nathan entered the workshop, startling her mid-project. Wood shavings carpeted the floor, half-finished tables leaned against every wall. "You're doing it again," he said. Margaret looked up. "What?" "The workshop," Nathan grinned. "That means you're obsessed." "Probably," she admitted, tracing her fingers over a completed tabletop. "This came from Thursday's delivery," he nodded toward the fence. "I would have burned it." "I know." Spring arrived with the county craft fair. Margaret secured the tiniest booth, displaying a single dining table and 2 benches. Visitors marveled, traced the grain, asked questions, yet no purchases followed. The drive home felt hollow. Nathan offered encouragement. "They liked them," she sighed. "They didn't buy," he shrugged. "They remembered them." The next fair yielded one sale. A retired couple purchasing a dining table for cash, insisting Margaret load it into their trailer. As they departed, Margaret watched silently. Not for the money, but because for the first time someone desired what she'd created. Orders trickled in slowly. Restaurants requested larger pieces. A bed and breakfast ordered 6 tables. A winery commissioned tasting room furniture. Margaret never advertised. Every client arrived via word of mouth. Meanwhile, the Thursday trucks continued, their loads never dwindling. Each delivery contained future tables, benches, possibilities. One humid July afternoon, a traveling designer paused at the winery, captivated by an oak table. "Who made this?" he asked the owner. "Local woman," came the reply. 3 days later, he appeared at Margaret's workshop, wandering among stacks of slats and drying racks. Standing beside a dining table, he ran his hands along the grain, smiling. "This isn't scrap wood," he said. Margaret crossed her arms. "I know." He gestured toward the towering oak piles behind the fence. "You have enough material for years." "Probably." A pause. "Have you ever considered selling outside the county?" The question lingered all week. Until then, she'd never seriously thought beyond local boundaries. The workshop kept her busy, every table sold before the next was finished. Restaurants recommended her, lodges ordered sets, families waited months for custom pieces. Steady work, comfortable rhythms. The designer circled the workshop again, nodding drying oak stacks and lean finished tabletops. Outside, a familiar truck backed toward the fence, the driver waving. Margaret waved back. The designer smiled. "Most companies pay thousands for lumber like this." Margaret nodded toward the fresh pile. "I've never paid $1. He laughed softly. "That's why you should think bigger." A month later, he urged her to a regional furniture exhibition. "You've got nothing to lose," Nathan convinced her. She hauled 3 dining tables, farmhouse, modern live-edge, traditional trestle, onto a borrowed trailer. Each piece originated from what others called scrap. The vast exhibition hall intimidated her. Massive companies displayed polished branding, professional lighting, sales teams. Margaret's booth featured 3 tables, a folding chair, and a handwritten sign. She expected little. Instead, visitors lingered, drawn by the wood itself. Hands traced flowing grain, eyes studied natural edges. Margaret explained simply, "Behind my fence." Most assumed she joked. By day's end, all 3 tables sold. By the second day, business cards accumulated in a notebook, interior designers, hoteliers, architects. One buyer asked, "Can you produce more?" Margaret hesitated. "I think so." The following year transformed everything. She expanded the workshop, not into a factory but into a larger craftsmanship studio. 3 local woodworkers joined, then 2 more artisans seeking purpose beyond house framing. Every Thursday the trucks still arrived, their loads vanishing quickly into production. One afternoon the lumber yard manager visited, watching employees sort fresh white oak. "You know," he said, laughing, "we used to pay thousands monthly to discard this." Margaret smiled. "I remember," he shook his head. "Now we're delivering your inventory." The county remained oblivious, assuming Margaret simply hobbied busily. Her nickname evolved from junk collector to table lady, the jokes continuing. One diner morning, Dale spotted a loaded trailer passing. "There goes another table," Rick laughed. "How many people need tables?" Margaret appeared, Dale asking. "Business good." "Very," she replied. "Still making tables from garbage." "Still. I'll never understand it." "You don't have to." 2 years later, a national magazine photographer documented her workshop, the furniture, the oak piles, hand tools, aging sheds. Design blogs amplified the story, interior designers reached out, orders flooded in faster than she could fulfill them. Nathan entered the office with a stack of new orders. "You're going to need help." Margaret studied the pile. "I know, lots of help," she smiled. "I know." The biggest surprise came 6 months later. A national retailer executive requested a visit. Margaret nearly declined, assuming another would handle such accounts. Instead, a team arrived one rain-soaked Tuesday, touring every building, scrutinizing joinery, observing sanding techniques. The lead buyer paused beside a massive white oak dining table, resting both hands on its surface, closing his eyes briefly, then smiling. "This is exactly what we're looking for." Margaret stayed silent. "We're launching a collection rooted in authentic American craftsmanship," he continued. "We want your tables in it." Silence blanketed the workshop. Nathan glanced at Margaret, who stared beyond the window at the giant oak piles. You're serious? Very. Months of negotiation followed. Margaret insisted on local production. No overseas manufacturing, no particle board, no veneers. Solid American white oak, hand-finished. The retailer agreed. Orders began the next spring, shipping Margaret's fence-sourced dining tables to showrooms nationwide. The county learned of her success only one Saturday when Dale and his wife browsed furniture in the city. His wife stopped dead. "Dale." "What?" she pointed. "No," he frowned. "What?" "That table, Margaret Hale Workshop," she breathed. Dale studied the plaque, then reread it. "No, I think that's your table, lady." The drive home hummed with quiet awe. Monday morning, the diner buzzed earlier than usual. Dale placed a catalog on the counter, beautiful photographs showcasing Margaret's table at center stage. "What now?" Rick asked. Dale opened it. The room fell silent as someone whispered, "She built that." Dale nodded slowly. "From the lumber piles." By lunchtime, the entire county knew. That afternoon, the lumber yard manager delivered another load, this time accompanied by several employees. They descended, stood quietly gazing at the workshop where machines hummed, craftsmen assembled tables, forklifts moved stacked slabs. One employee shook his head. "We've been discarding a furniture business for 13 years. The manager smiled. "Looks like we have." One autumn evening, Nathan stood beside Margaret, overlooking the property. The oak piles had shrunk but remained, dwarfed by the expanded workshop where delivery trucks loaded finished pieces daily. Employees locked up, the scent of fresh-cut white oak drifting in the cool air. "What bothers me?" Nathan asked. Margaret smiled. "They called it junk. For years. They laughed. They didn't see it." Margaret picked up a rough slab from the newest delivery, bark clinging to twisted edges. Most would still call it firewood. She angled it toward the setting sun. Golden light revealed swirling grain beneath the rough surface, just as Samuel had shown her decades earlier. He'd glimpsed the table within the tree. For 13 years, the lumber yard believed it paid to discard waste. The county assumed Margaret collected scraps. Neighbors saw firewood, crooked boards, useless cutoffs. Margaret saw possibility, patience, craftsmanship. Every Thursday, another truck backed to the fence, unloading what others rejected. One board at a time. One table at a time. One customer at a time. Until the wood once destined for landfills became handcrafted dining tables coveted nationwide. Because sometimes true value isn't born from finding better materials. It's forged by seeing what everyone else has already decided isn't worth seeing.